listening to Here to Chew Bubblegum, recorded from a secret location in the city that moves mountains.
Greetings.
We come in peace.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Here to Chew Bubblegum. I'm Goose.
I'm Cronkite. Goose?
How are you doing, my friend?
This is it.
What do you mean this is it?
This is the last show.
No, it's not the last show.
Until the next show. This is the last
Well,
one.
yeah, this is the last show until the next show.
Mm-hmm.
And we are recording this differently. We usually record the show on Sunday. We air it on Sunday evening. We're recording the day before. And, well, actually, we're recording a lot longer than the day before. So we have a best of listener emails coming up in just a moment.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that?
I think it's right on schedule.
Do you want to tell them why we had to record the shows a little bit early?
I don't.
Somebody had to go out of town, and it wasn't me.
I travel.
Yes, you do. My name's Cronkite, and I travel.
I'm a traveler.
Have you ever saw the movie Wedding Crashers?
Yes.
Let's just say that Cronkite lives that movie.
I do.
That is why he had to travel.
I have to travel. I have to crash a wedding.
You know, and I'm very proud of you. You're drinking water.
I am. You're right.
No more energy drinks, huh?
Nope. Not after...
After your accident in the restroom at the cookie factory.
Yep.
So, how's things going at the cookie factory? I've not saw you in a while. I saw you a little bit Friday evening.
It's I've been pretty busy, so I've not really had a whole lot of time to just stand around and talk.
Oh, really? Really?
Some people are supervisors, and that's all they get to do is just stand around and talk.
And who are you talking about?
I don't know who you're talking about.
It seems like you're talking about me.
Well, now you're being a little paranoid.
No, I'm not. Just go ahead and say what's really on your mind.
I don't know. I don't have anything on my mind. I'm just, I'm thinking it's going to be an excellent show. What do you think?
I think it's going to be an excellent show. It's always an excellent show.
I agree. What do you think about this cold spell we've got going on?
I don't like it.
I don't either.
I know you want it to snow, right?
No, I'm sick of snow.
Oh, really?
Listen, I hate snow.
No, you do not.
I hate snow.
If it's cold, I want it to snow.
That doesn't mean I like snow, but if it's going to be cold, I'd rather there be something to look at than just cold. I hate cold weather. I like summer, spring, and fall.
Good. Me too. If you could travel anywhere right now, where would it be?
It's a good question. Like off the top of my head, just right away.
Yes.
A beach somewhere.
That's a good one. What beach?
I don't know, just a beach.
Like, well, there's one in Knott County called Car Fork Beach. Would you want to go to that?
An ocean beach.
Okay, got you.
How about that?
No lake beaches.
No lake beaches, please. I'll take an ocean beach.
Okay. If you could be in one movie, what would it be?
Iron Man.
Now, don't tell me you want to play Iron Man.
No, I want to be the fat guy that was the driver. I could be that guy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I could be the guy that helps Iron Man do things.
So you would be like a butler?
Yeah.
Okay. Would you want me to start calling you Jeeves?
No.
Are you sure?
I'm not in Iron Man, so you can't call me that.
Okay.
Where would you go? And what movie would you want to be in?
I would also go to a beach, and if I could be in any movie...
Footloose. I knew it.
No.
Grease Lightning.
No.
Grease?
I'm going to say Forrest Gump. Because he went to different points in history and stuff. And it was a great movie. Or Back to the Future.
There we go.
You know.
That's what I'm talking about. Man, can I change my answer? I want to go Back to the Future now.
No, you can't change it. It's permanent. So, and I think I told you about this a long time ago when we were trying to come up with a name for the show. And I was trying to find a website and all that. And social media networks that has, that we could use. Did I ever tell you that at one time I wanted to call the show, Hey, Wait a Minute Doc?
No.
Because HeyWaitAMinuteDoc.com was open. The YouTube page for Hey, Wait a Minute Doc was open. The Facebook page for Hey, Wait a Minute Doc was not open. So, but I'm glad that it turned out like it did, because Here to Chew Bubblegum is just an awesome name.
It is.
It's an awesome name.
It's a very good name.
And don't forget, we have some big news coming up in the next couple of weeks from Elliott. What do you think the news is going to be?
He's going back in time.
He's not a time traveler. It has nothing to do with that.
He's a time traveler, Goose.
And you only wish that I told you what it was.
Yep, I do.
So, too bad, too sad.
Well, no, I don't know what it is. I just can speculate, and I'm going to keep speculating.
Okay, well, let's move on to some best of listener email. I'll let you go first.
Paul from Oregon wrote, Goose and Cronkite. You guys are funny, entertaining, and ear candy for me to listen to. Love the show. Keep it up. Well, thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much, Paul. And like I said, this is best of listener email. Alicia from Ohio wrote, to answer your question of the week in regards to disclosure, I think by sharing videos earlier this year that the government is preparing for full disclosure. I may be wrong, but not much was said or mentioned in mainstream news after those videos were released. I think they'll continue to release more information as time goes on. Now, this was emailed to us last year, and she was referring to the videos that was released in April 2020.
Yes.
If you listened to last week's show, we did a segment in the opening where we talked about the new video and pictures that were released. And I do think disclosure is just around the corner.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think, like I said last week, I don't think it's going to be years away. I think it very well could be this year.
Yes, definitely.
They are softening us up.
Yep, a soft opening. What does your next email say?
Starman Fan says, the Little Green Man Festival sounds intriguing. I hope to see you two there next year.
Yes, definitely.
I hope so too.
Did you ever find the dates on that? I know we talked about it last week, but you did not.
I know it's in August. But
sorry to put you on the spot, buddy.
Well, no, I know it's in August, but they haven't actually given
the dates
yet.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Lisa from Kentucky says, hello, here to Chew Bubblegum. I'm glad that you guys are back and look forward to more shows. Have you ever thought about doing a series of shows on Bigfoot? I think that would make for a great show. Why are you making a face at that?
I mean, I think Bigfoot would be a great show.
No, you do not. That's why you were making a face.
I'm not a Bigfoot fan.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say I'm not a fan of Bigfoot as I am time travel or UFOs or stuff like that. But I do think the Bigfoot story is fascinating.
Yes, we should definitely do a Bigfoot show.
Okay.
Because one of our listeners wants a Bigfoot show. Goose.
I think that we should do a show on real world events. What do you think about that?
I think that could be dangerous.
Why?
Because we're hotheads.
Speak for yourself. I'm not a hothead.
I'm a hothead.
So,
Lisa from Indiana. It's a different Lisa.
yes.
Hello, I think that 2021 will bring full disclosure. I hope that the world is ready and will accept that they've been lied to for years.
Me too. And I think 2021 will bring disclosure. Kenneth from Tennessee writes, I don't think the government will ever disclose the existence of UFOs or aliens. They've kept the truth buried for so long, I think it's too late for them to come clean. I disagree, Kenneth, because, and we've talked about it on the show before, I think that one of the reasons they changed the whole UFO to UAP is because they'll never say UFOs exist, but they will say UAPs exist, which are the same thing.
Yep, I totally agree. Useful Facts from Texas asked, love the show, guys. I really enjoyed last week's show. I wish she would agree to be on the show. I find he or she's answers both insightful and fascinating. Keep seeking for the truth because it is out there.
And they're talking about our inside informant that we have in a branch of the military. My next one is from Wondering.
Okay.
It says,
what are they wondering?
Hey guys, if an apocalypse happened, what would you do? Do you have a plan?
Depends on what type of apocalypse it is.
Any apocalypse.
No, I really don't have. Well, I mean, we have a bunker, but I mean, we're kind of out of snacks, so I don't know what we're gonna do.
We're not out of snacks. Crazy.
Well, I mean, we have snacks.
Okay.
We don't have like bread.
Okay. In the town I used to live in, I used to sometimes think about if a zombie apocalypse happened, what would I do?
You're a prepper.
Why?
Aren't you?
Why?
You
No,
are a
no,
prepper,
no.
aren't you?
I'm not saying that I have.
I knew
anything.
it. I knew that there was some reason you were driving a military vehicle.
Okay.
The last two times I've seen you.
Ha ha ha. For real though, if something happens like an end of the world type thing, where think about how crazy people went over toilet paper last year. Okay, think about that for a second. could you imagine what the grocery stores would be like?
Oh, it'd be terrible.
Yes, it would. Now, what I used to envision is that if something like that happened, there were some particular places where I used to live at, and I'll just go ahead and say it, they were public buildings like courthouses. A lot of those offices have bottled water. I would hit those places. I would hit those vending machines. I would hit places like that because that would be people's second, third, or fourth thoughts.
Right.
I would hit those first because, one, they're going to be less dangerous because people would be out storming your chain stores and your grocery stores. They're not going to think about those.
Right.
And then I would also hit up some pet stores.
Dog biscuits.
No. I knew you were going to say that.
I knew you like
no,
those.
But there is a lot of fish medicine that humans can also take. And yes, I did research on that years ago. I can't remember exactly what it was, but you can also get chlorine tablets at pet stores. Why would you do that? To purify your water. So, years ago, I did have a little plan. And it goes on a little bit more, but I'm not going to give anything else away.
He is a prepper, ladies and gentlemen.
No, I am not.
Mulder fan from Pennsylvania says, I like the Truth Is Out There series. I just wanted to say that and look forward to more shows next year.
Well, good. Last name Zito says, how do you guys come up with show ideas? Are they planned in advance? How about show guests? Do you have a producer that books guests?
We don't per se have a producer that books our guests.
Well, we do have Ned, the producer.
Yeah, he's a producer, but he doesn't really book the guests. He's more along the lines of, he's like our babysitter. He makes sure we don't do anything stupid.
Babysitter?
Yeah.
What do you mean, make sure we don't do anything stupid?
We've been known to do stupid stuff.
We have not been known to do stupid
Goose.
stuff.
You don't have to lie to the people. Anyway, we get our ideas from the show. Yes, we usually research at least a week or two in advance.
Yes, we do.
And we begin almost immediately after the show that we just recorded. We immediately start prepping for the following week. Yeah,
definitely. We do. And the way that we pick our subjects is just stuff that listeners emailed in the last show. It was entirely listener requested topics. So we let them suggest to us what they wanted to hear about, and then we went and done the research on it.
Yes.
You can always call, text, or leave a voicemail by calling 606-373-3396. Keep it clean, and we'll play it on the show when we're recording the show. May even call you back when we're recording the show. Or you can email us. How can they do that?
Well, you can email Goose at heretochewbubblegum.com or Cronkite at heretochewbubblegum.com. You can reach Ned or Elliott at heretochewbubblegum at yahoo.com. Attention, Ned or Elliott.
Exactly.
I almost said Ned or Elliott.
Yes, you did.
I almost did. It was almost awful.
But you didn't.
It's not Elliott.
It's
Elliott.
Elliott.
And you better email him soon because he's going back to 3062 soon. So
he's not a time traveler.
He is.
But we're going to take a short break and come back. And segment 1, we're going to have a special guest join us via phone line.
That's exciting.
And we're going to talk about black projects and some documents from theblackvault.com.
Exciting.
Or blackvault.com. We'll be back in just a moment. Hey everyone, this is Goose from Here to Chew Bubblegum. I want to tell you about my friend T-Shirt Joe at FastCustomShirts.com. T-Shirt Joe is your go-to guy for all your custom work. Also, you can check out their website and find artist originals, college shirts, comics, famous folk, fetish, military, movie shirts, occupations, podcast and website shirts, plus he has face masks and many other items over at FastCustomShirts.com. While there at their website, you can sign up for their newsletter. Or you can give Joe a call at area code 361-814-9212. That's 361-814-9212 to contact my friend T-Shirt Joe at FastCustomShirts.com.
You're listening to Here to Chew Bubblegum with Goose and Cronkite.
And welcome back to Here to Chew Bubblegum. I'm Cronkite. That fine feathered gentleman across from me is Goose. Goose, where'd your feathers go?
I don't have any feathers. We are calling Justin Perkins.
Hello.
Hello, is this Justin?
Yes, it is.
Hey, Justin, this is Goose. You're on Here to Chew Bubblegum with Goose and my chubby little friend Cronkite.
Why you gotta say chubby? Just because I called you feathered don't mean you gotta call me chubby.
Well, hey, man.
Hi, Justin. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. It's good to talk to you guys. How you guys doing today?
We are doing good. We are doing good. Somebody has to go out of town, so we're recording a bunch of shows today. Mm-hmm. And I'll give you a hint.
Well.
I will give you a hint. It's not me that has to go out of town.
It's Elliott. He's gonna go back to the future.
It's not Elliott. See, I keep my priorities straight. We always record the show. But for those of you that don't know Justin, I've been talking about Justin for the last couple of weeks. Justin has a podcast, Talk Junkie, that you can hear on Anchor, Spotify. I listen to him on Anchor. We actually recorded the message finally and sent it to you probably 20 minutes ago. Hopefully that turned out okay.
Okay.
Now,
I had a little trouble with that part of the app here lately, so but I switched to Anchor not too long back, and podcasting wise, it gave me a lot of options that some of the other platforms hadn't really given me.
yeah, no, that's the one that we've used ever since we've started, and I even talked about you in the last show a little bit. I was going to message and give you a heads up on that, but I was telling Cronkite that you may be a little skeptic about UFOs and aliens and government conspiracies in regards to UFOs or Roswell. Did I guess that correct?
Yeah, I mean,
Told you.
I spent most of my life an adamant, obsessed believer. As a child, I remember getting my first computer as a child, and I would write my own newspaper every week and print it out and hand it out to the old man at my grandpa's store about aliens and hauntings and ghosts. I was obsessed to the point it pretty well consumed me, especially research-wise. And I just got to a point on the ghost end of it, I never found anything that even remotely led me in it. On the alien side of it, I'm a very adamant believer that there's life on other planets, definitely intelligent life, and I'm not completely opposed to the fact that they've been here. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of recent events have really started to shift me more back towards that. Okay, when the government's even coming out and going, all right, look, we can't explain it. What do you want us to do about it?
Right.
So, that's something definitely worth looking at. In Roswell, I don't believe Roswell was a weather balloon. I don't know what it was. I know you guys often, in any type of conversation involving aliens or any type of advanced technology, for whatever reasons, the Nazis always come up. So,
yes, they do.
Theories about them regarding Roswell.
Well, when we first started diving into some of the advanced technology in World War II, we actually felt bad because it seemed like, and Cronkite, you join in here, we were talking about Nazis a lot. And,
yeah, I mean, it was...
and it's not that we're a fan of Nazis. We're not. They're bad. They're wrong,
Yeah, and it was to the point where we actually had to step back and say, we realize we talk about Nazis a lot. We are not Nazis. We do not like Nazis.
Yeah.
But
I've since starting listening to you guys' show, I've somewhat become obsessed with it. I've said, and spent a long time on the road, a long time out of town. I'm almost completely caught up with all your guys' episodes, and I don't think in any way you guys glorify me. It's just an unavoidable topic because, and then we look, Werner von Braun ran NASA.
Yes, he did.
The United States government doesn't go to the moon more than likely without Werner von Braun. So, the United States has a long, torrid history with a lot of these Nazis and a lot of Nazi scientists, people that done very bad things. And I think it's important to mention their role, if nothing else, to say, hey, somehow these people made it out without prosecution, for one thing. But I don't feel you guys ever glorified it. I think it's just in that field of discussion and study, it's an inevitable topic.
Yeah, and some of their technology still, holds up to where we're at today in technology.
Yeah, and NASA for a while was littered with Nazis. It was just every scientist you looked at came out of that area.
No doubt, and it's one of those ugly truths of history. But I think it's important to look at because you really can't discuss it without doing so.
Right. Well, what do you think about last week's government issued photos and videos where they basically said these are real, they're unknowns.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you had 3 different ones. You had a metallic like blimp, you had the
Acorn.
you had the acorn, and then
like a pyramid.
Yeah, like a pyramid. What's your thoughts on those?
I've heard about the dump of stuff, and actually I heard there were some videos possibly with it.
Yes, they are.
In the middle of nowhere, literally with no service 90% of the time. So I have not seen any of that. It is something that I'm definitely going to check in, and I'm highly anticipating what's supposedly going to be the full release. What got stuck in with that COVID deal,
Yeah,
and it's supposed to come out. I worry about all this stuff they're kind of putting out right now, and then getting to that date, and it really not being a big show. Them just kind of going, okay, because we're expecting the federal government to tell the intelligence agencies what they're going to do, and that's really not the way that works. I know people like to assume it is, and would like to hope that it is, that somebody in Washington has control over these agencies, but they don't. And so it does worry me. They keep releasing stuff, or there is the distinct possibility that releasing these things is a way to kind of soften the blow of what they are actually going to release.
And that's exactly what we said on last week's show. It was kind of a soft opening, you know, that in April of 2020 they put out those videos, and then like a year later they put out, you know, the new videos, and you know they're just trying to prepare people and softening the blow.
Well, yeah, and I'm sorry.
ahead.
Well, I was going to say I totally agree with what you say there. As far as these intelligence agencies, we act like these, you know, that our elected officials tell them what to do, and to a certain extent that's true. But when it comes to the really secretive part of the universe or the world or whatever's happening, the intelligence of national security, blah blah blah, whatever they want to hide behind, they're not going to listen to a bunch of civilians that were elected.
No. And you look, the most important thing to government officials, for the most part, is money. Now,
Exactly.
we're still waiting since September 10th, 2001. We're still waiting to see what happened to that $1 trillion some dollars that Rumsfeld couldn't find. That went into black operations, and that's been a long time ago. We've heard nothing about that since then. You know, they don't have as much control as I would like for them to have. You know, I mean, to be honest with you, I'd like for them to be in check. But another thing kind of confused me about them releasing all this at once. I really started thinking about it, especially when the whole COVID bill announcement come out. And, you know, why now and why this? And there's the obvious option of maybe something's coming that they're not going to be able to control, and it's easier to ease us into that process. But also, look at what they're releasing right now and what they're admitting themselves, and there's really not a lot of public reaction or a lot of public attention. I think maybe they've gotten to a point with social media and saturation in movies and things like that to where it's kind of dulled people. You've become maybe somewhat accustomed to these notions, and it's a little easier to let that stuff out.
Yes, they've definitely been desensitized. Now, let me ask you a question, Justin. If you, if for some reason the, daggone it, I forgot it again. I'm sorry. Come back to me. I'll figure.
Let me ask you a question, Justin. What size shoes do you wear?
I had it.
It's dependent on sneaker to boot, but generally somewhere between the 9.5 and the 10.
Okay.
I'm a small-footed man.
Yeah. Was that your question, Cronkite?
It was. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
No. But you know, we're you know, happy to have you on the show with us. We definitely want you on the Roundtable show. That will be maybe, and I'll shoot you some dates offline, or you know, when we get off here later on, and we will get that planned out. But we definitely want to have you in for our Roundtable shows.
Well, I would very much like to have you guys on my show, and I know I don't have as distinct a schedule as you guys. I actually kind of listening to you guys and a little situation that was losing a friend kind of got me motivated to get back in. I've been a little while off of podcasting, but that's the advantage of the Anchor app. Maybe we could try out this new technology. There's no reason for me jumping to Anchor, where we do the Facebook voice calls and kind of link up.
Yeah.
I'd love to have you guys on.
Yeah, you just definitely let us know, and we will definitely be on. You know, and I am a procrastinator when it comes to updating the website, but when I do update it, you will have your own section on our website, and I may even put up a picture of you if you don't care that you send me, and I'll put a link to your Anchor show and Spotify page and everything. So
I'll give you an interesting little tidbit. If you actually go on Apple Podcasts and you search for the show Tinfoil Skeptic, that is my podcast.
Okay.
It just never took off.
Okay.
For the reason that I couldn't find anyone that had any interest in paranormal and UFOs and the occult, and especially government conspiracies. I love government conspiracies. I am a deep lover, unlike yourself, of the simulation theory. Not because I believe in it, I just love it. But I love the idea of getting to talk to you guys and be, in any way to get the experience of being part of a show like this for an episode or so, because it really hits more into what I enjoy. My podcast, for people that want to listen to it, really is, I always looked at it as a thought exercise.
Right.
When I published my first book is when I really started doing the podcast, because for the most part, I've done 4 books. 2 of those have been poetry books, and I don't get to get out all the ideas kind of that's in my head with that, and I don't get to long-form look at a subject. So with the podcast, I can kind of look at a subject. The last podcast was over free speech, and I can look at it and kind of look at how my thoughts have changed over the years and how I really feel about certain things. And so it's a different thing than it's not what I set out to do at all. The original incarnation of my podcast was 4 gentlemen, including myself, sitting down and just talking movies and whatever.
Right.
Old wrestling, just anything that we enjoyed. And schedules, I really admire the fact that you guys do your show the way you do it and as well as you do it, and work together with all the other outside interaction with Ned and all these guys, because that's hard to achieve, and there's a lot of work that goes into that. And I don't think people really realize that, and I was never able to really get that kind of going myself because I don't have a lot of people interested in podcasting.
Right.
Amazingly, as much as I love to talk, it's hard to find other people that do.
Yeah. Well, and thank you very much for the kind words. And I'm going to be honest with you. Listening to your podcast and the things that you talk about versus what we talk about, yours is, it makes me feel stupid sometimes listening to yours. Because you're like on a whole nother level. And yours is so good, and it really stops and makes you think, and, my hat's off to you. I'm an avid listener to your podcast, and I've listened to probably more than half of your shows, and,
definitely, yes.
I truly appreciate that. 2 of my favorite podcasts, and this is not because I'm speaking with you guys. I've been telling you this privately since I first listened to it, and if it hadn't been for me doing another podcast, I would have not heard about your podcast. But 2 of my favorite podcasts that I really listen to right now is your guys' podcast and a podcast called Down on the Holler. It's another group of people from here in Knott County. A guy I went to school with, his younger brother. And those are probably 2 of my favorite podcasts. And I don't think it's just because I'm from Appalachia or from Eastern Kentucky. I believe that people from this area are really going to excel at this medium, because if you look at how kind of separated Eastern Kentucky was from the rest of the world for all those generations, that's where we get our dialect from, our traditions. And at one point in time, there was a settler, and I can't remember the date or the name, who said it's probably harder to make it through the hills and survive in Eastern Kentucky than it was to go west. So we were a very isolated people, and the internet age changed that, and I think podcasting's changed that. I think mountain people, no matter what the genre, it doesn't have to be about mountain topics, have a lot to say and are really good at expressing themselves. And I think that's why people like you and the guys at Down on the Holler are really good at that, because I think mountain people finally have a way to have a voice, and I think they have an exceptional voice.
Well, thank you very much, Justin, and I totally agree with you. Did you think of your question, Cronkite?
I've been racking my brain. It was UFO related, but I was going to ask him because you said he was a skeptic, so I was going to ask him something along those lines. It was about a sighting maybe we had.
Was it the one in Pikeville in 2012?
It may have been. Possibly, I don't know. I don't have that sighting in front of me, so I couldn't.
He does wear a 9.5, 10 shoe size, so you can, definitely.
Well, in regards to that sighting, what was the official? Some type of balloon?
It was
an internet balloon, which we really don't believe,
No. In all honesty, there's three possibilities there. There is a UFO of alien origin,
right?
Which I don't rule out. There's the possibility of a government craft, which in regards to that particular situation is not something you could rule out. You look at the Tic Tac,
yeah.
I think you rule out government.
Definitely.
At that point, you really got to go kind of towards extraterrestrial. I mean, there's the possibility of manipulated footage, but Lieutenant Fravor just doesn't seem like the type of individual that's going to be part of something like that, because there's not a lot for him to gain from that. And then, you've got the government backing his story on top of that, so I really don't see that as being an issue there. But as far as the third option, impactful, is a natural phenomenon, and, I don't really see what you put in that. But the one thing for sure, I think the only thing you say definitively about the case in Pikeville is it's not a weather balloon.
No, it was not a weather balloon.
Whatever it's supposed to be.
Yeah, an internet balloon.
I got my question.
Okay.
So, and it reminded me of this because that was my question was, all right, so right now, especially since coronavirus, sightings are up.
Yes.
UFO sightings are up. And my question to you, Justin, is: do you think that that's because of people are just bored and are looking at the sky, or do you think it's because of everyone has a cell phone that actually can take a fairly decent picture now, or is it there are more sightings happening?
That's hard, and the way I would really have to look at that would be kind of analytically break that down. What region are they coming from? What and socioeconomic issues come into play there as well, because all those things kind of influence what type of sightings you generally have. And I don't think there is a psychiatrist or a therapist in the country right now would say that coronavirus didn't have a definite psychological impact on people. Now, that's not to say that I'm sitting here saying, oh, these are imagined or thought of. Maybe it opened people up to be more reflective and more observant and to kind of look at things in a different light. Because I'm sure there's a lot of people who have seen things that are well beyond explanation. But to that person, it doesn't trigger anything or doesn't really engage them because they don't have that aspect of their personality kind of opened up. They're a closed-off person. They're a narrow-minded person. But there's also the possibility that it really is a large increase in sightings because there's a large increase in activity, and that may dictate why the government seems to be so willing to put forth this information. And the one thing about the government being willing to put forth the information and this increased activity that does worry me is you look at something like the speech that Reagan gave, maybe what we all really need is an enemy outside of this world to unite us globally, and maybe that's a thought process. I don't think most government officials in most countries are that unified or happy-go-lucky that they want world peace. There's a lot of profit and war, but maybe it has an ulterior motive somewhat similar to that.
Now, going back to the Reagan speech about that is Stephen Greer actually did the documentary that said that we have the technology right now to fake an alien invasion. Our government has the technology to fake a worldwide alien invasion, which makes me wonder if maybe that was talk in the 80s.
Back in the 80s?
Well, Star Wars, that very easily could have been part of the Star Wars initiative. There were a lot of black op and black budget things associated with that Star Wars defense project. It very possibly could be something that's derived down and made it down from that. In regards to having the ability, look at what Orson Welles was able to do with an H.G. Wells book and a radio play.
Good point.
Yeah.
Psychological is 90% of that. We definitely have the technology. There's imagine, I don't know what year we actually got the SR-71 Blackbird. I know in the 70s it was in use, but I don't know what year we actually got it. But let's say, I mean, based on the way that we get released to things like Stealth Fighter and things like that, there's the possibility they had this thing in 55. You just land an SR-70, was it 71 or 75?
71.
Blackbird. You land it on an airstrip and get some guys in some weird suits hop out of that in 55. Imagine what kind of panic you could spread with that. Imagine what they've got now.
Yeah.
Imagine, let's say they've got something even remotely similar to the Nazi Bell functional, and you've got the best of prosthetic makeup artists from Hollywood. Very easily, you know, and I've always heard with that the possibility of using AI kind of combatants to fight against was an idea of this fake invasion.
It's a terrifying thought process.
Yeah, it's very, very terrifying. And Justin, I know you're busy. We didn't pre-plan this. This was a spur of the moment, and I don't want to hold you on here, but I do, before you go, want to thank you very much for letting us call you and putting you on the show today. And definitely, you know, keep your Sundays open in May. When we do our roundtable, we would love to have you come by Bunker Studios.
Booker.
I didn't say Booker. Bunker Studios, and sit in on a roundtable with myself, Cronkite, Elliott, and Justin. So
it's going to be a good time.
I would definitely make any arrangement I could to make that possible with you guys, and I truly appreciate you guys having me on here.
Well, thank you very much, Justin, and you have a good afternoon, sir.
You too.
And that was Justin Perkins with Talk Junkie on Here to Chew Bubblegum. Justin's a very smart guy.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, you know, you listen to Talk Junkie, and I'm serious. You know, he says stuff that makes you think, and no matter what he's talking about, it makes you think. Mm-hmm. And then I listen to our show, and the stuff we're talking about, and I'm like, man, I feel kind of stupid.
Oh, halfway through, and I'm like, I got a question for you that I forget.
Yeah. Well, see, you are stupid. So.
I was like, I got a question for you, Justin, and then, no, I don't.
Never mind. So, moving on in this segment, we're going to talk about black projects. What's your take on some government black projects, Cronkite?
Oh, they're, you know, it's just, it is what it is.
Well, by definition, a black project is a highly classified, top-secret military or defense project that is not publicly acknowledged by government, military personnel, or contractors.
Or
contractors. The Cold War is over, so why Paul McGinnis wanted to know, are the major CIA, NSA, and Department of Defense programs still being kept secret from Congress and U.S. taxpayers? What do you think the reason is?
I would say there's probably another threat that we don't know about.
Okay, well, we're going to talk about some black projects that do actually exist.
Okay.
Okay, first on the list is the Sea Shadow. It may have a sinister sounding name, but the Sea Shadow was simply a prototype stealth ship built by Lockheed for the United States Navy. Its purpose was to test the configuration of stability on various hull types in preparation for radar invisibility in naval ships. Mm-hmm. The Sea Shadow was first housed in San Diego, then Benica, California, until being sold to the highest bidder for scrap metal. It was unarmed and never meant for anything other than testing. Now, if you look at a picture of this just likes the funkiest ship there was. No, so you've actually saw it.
I've seen it. Yeah, I was actually going to ask you if it was Sea Shadow with a C or just Sea Shadow, which when you start talking about ship, it made sense.
Yeah.
SEA.
The next one is the Boeing X-37 space plane.
Yes, I know what that is.
A recently declassified space plane, the Boeing X-37, was transferred from NASA to the secretive military research arm DARPA in 2004. It wasn't publicly acknowledged again until 2010 when its first mission ended. The three versions of the X-37 have spent nearly 1,400 days in space, with the most recent mission ending in October 2014. Now, this is a cross between like one of your Challenger space shuttles and an airplane.
Yeah, essentially it's a glider like the shuttle was, but it's unmanned.
Yes.
It. So
yes, it is.
it's there's no people on it, and really no one outside of probably the military knows what it's doing up there. Nobody knows what its missions are.
Because they were secret
Sure.
by DARPA.
But each time it goes up, it stays up for over 600 days.
Yes, it does.
It's crazy.
So, the SR-72, the successor aircraft to the SR-71 Blackbird spy plane, the Lockheed SR-72 is a real design, though it hasn't been built yet that we know of. It could be unmanned, hypersonic drone craft, and it was scheduled to travel over Mach 6.
Wow.
Mount Weather. I think we've mentioned that before on the show, briefly. The Mount Weather Emergency Operations Center is a FEMA-administered relocation site to be used by senior government and civilian officials in the event of a disaster or war. It was built in 1959 and remained secret until 1974. It was used in the aftermath of the 9/11 attacks as a refuge for congressmen and women. Due to its important and high-stakes nature, Mount Weather is often used as a setting for disaster-related books, TV shows, and films. Raven Rock Mountain Complex is another such continuity of government designed to be used as an underground Pentagon. See if this one sounds familiar. Hangar 18.
Sounds familiar.
It does exist. Hangar 18 is a perfect example of a real thing that doesn't do anything nearly as what conspiracy theorist thinks it does.
Okay.
In real life, supposedly in real life. This was part of the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and the Cold World Hangar 18 housed Foreign Technology Division, which studied and reverse-engineered captured Russian aircraft. But UFO believers have said that the Hollywood movie of the same name, believe Hangar 18, is where evidence of the Roswell UFO crash was kept until it was moved to Area 51. From my research, I tend to agree with the people. That's where Roswell UFO material was at until it was transferred.
I agree that it was. I mean, we know that it was taken to Wright-Patterson.
Yes.
I think it was actually Hangar 23, wasn't it?
I think it was Hangar 23, but, it was still taken to Wright-Patterson, which is 4 hours from us.
Right. So I mean, Hangar 18 could very well be, where they took apart MiGs and such. Yeah. But I don't know. Maybe it's like a. I want to hear about 23.
Cheyenne Mountain, the former nuclear-hardened command center for NORAD. Cheyenne Mountain is another one of the government's once secret facilities for the survival of nuclear or natural disasters. It's now used as a training facility with the responsibility for housing the leadership of the military divided up to other underground bases.
Fantastic.
So those are some black projects that do exist.
Very nice. I'd like to hear about the ones that don't exist.
Well, there's this fishing hole. Moving on to some Black Vault documents, and we're running on time a little bit before we need to break. So I'm going to start with the last one here. And I'm starting out with this one because this is on theblackvault.com. Okay. There's government documents, declassified records of about anything that you would ever want to know about. JFK, UFOs, Hitler, time travel, Nikola Tesla, you name it.
Time travel's on there?
One of the things, yes it is.
Really?
Yes. One of the things that was on there was an article that was shared by that was cut out and saved by the CIA. Now, the article is from 1979 from a publication known as the National Enquirer. Why do we,
It's a tabloid.
Yes, it is. And if you're new to the show, we've explained this and we'll go over it again quickly. Not all tabloids, but some tabloids tend to print stuff that is true or has been true, because they're not controlled by mainstream media.
Right.
The government does not control them. They're independent.
Yep.
All right. So we've always said that some of the articles in tabloids could be true. We're not saying all of them are, but some of them could be.
Well, some of them are crazy.
Now, what makes me think that this one was true is because it was clipped out, and this was part of a secret file that the government had. And there is even handwriting on it that it was from the November 27th, 1979 edition of the National Enquirer. And the title says, Government Super Secret Security Agency warns take UFOs seriously or be prepared for a sneak invasion by space aliens.
Wow.
So why would the government save that?
Yeah, that's a good question.
And it goes on to say, like, there's a picture, but you can't. There's a picture of UFOs and stuff in it, and like the first one, it says dangerous threat. The high percentage of sightings by reputable people and others have spotted this spaceship hovering near Dulles, New Mexico. Photo at left, and it shows the photo. The tip of the flying saucers was dazzling four-pointed UFO. And then the other one has another picture that also says dangerous threat. Well, that's actually the same picture. But in the article, it tells about, it starts out, it says, in one of the most startling government reports on UFOs, America's super secret National Security Agency. Super secret. It was super secret back in 1979.
That's like next level secret.
Yeah, Anyway, it goes on to say, one of the most startling government reports on UFOs ever, America's super secret National Security Agency says UFOs are real and warns that the country should be prepared for a confrontation with space aliens. The sensational document, obtained exclusively by the Enquirer, rips apart the notion that all UFOs are hoaxes or hallucinations. And what's more is that the NSA has sounded a bone-chilling alarm. If America doesn't start taking these sightings seriously, we are leaving ourselves wide open to the possibility of a Pearl Harbor type UFO invasion.
What would be even worse than that?
And the story goes on to continue, but I just think it's funny that on Black Vault documents, this was a released document that the government had saved.
Now that has to be, it would be worse than Pearl Harbor if they have advanced technology.
Yeah, yes, it would be. But people can laugh, and people probably laughed when we read some of the articles before on the Blue Triangle of Kentucky because it was National Geographic.
Right.
Okay, that is fine. Laugh. Now, and I'm not saying everything that they print is real, but if there was if that story there that they printed in 1979, if it was total BS and just made up, why would the government take time to have a secretary cut out the article, handwrite November 27th, 1979 National Enquirer on it, and why would they save that in a secret file if it was useless?
That's a good question. And then only a few years later, you have Ronald Reagan talking about having a ship that can over 300 people.
Yeah, 6 years later, So that definitely makes you think.
There's a lot of things there that could be more than coincidence.
And there's some more black documents that I pulled that we'll go over on later shows.
Okay.
But we're going to take a break and have Elliott's articles. And when we come back, my man Cronkite is going to talk about TWA Flight 800 and another flight. What is it? Malaysia Flight 370.
Yes, MH370.
And you're listening to Here to Chew Bubblegum, and we'll be back in just a moment.
I turned away when you needed me. I thought the fire would burn forever, you see. I made mistakes, but you've always pulled me through.
Greetings.
We come in peace.
The City of Coal Run Village Mayor Andrew Scott and City Commissioners Beverly Joe Osborne, Big Joe Atkins, Trey Deskins, and Mike Steele encourage you to shop local.
With over 200 businesses, the City of Coal Run Village offers games, restaurants, gas, auto parts, cars, and much more.
You'll find all of this and more in the city of Coal Run Village. Shop local and shop often.
Are you a horror movie fan? Yeah, I dig horror movies. Are you searching for a great internet horror talk radio show to listen to? Why, sure, that sounds quite spiffy. Then you need to tune into deadpit.com. It's the original horror talk radio show. Dead Pit is a show by the fans and for the fans. Uncensored and unbiased opinions are the goal of the show, giving fans honest reviews on new films and vintage classics of the horror genre. Make deadpit.com your #1 horror station destination.
Researching the inner workings of the net to bring you stories of the strange and unusual. It's Elliott's Articles on Here to Chew Bubblegum. Take it away, Elliott.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. You're here with Elliott on Elliott's Articles on the Here to Chew Bubblegum podcast. Now, I am with my spooky family once again, and we're doing part 2 of the 15 times aliens definitely visited Kentucky. You can find that article on KentuckyForKentucky.com. It was written by Coleman Larkin on the September 19th, 2019. We covered the first 3 mentions. We're not going to cover all of them, not all 15. We don't want to take up everybody's time, but there are a couple that we want to talk about, so we're not going to cover all of them. We're going to skip the Stanford abduction. That was covered pretty well in the roundtable show. We had already done one of those stories when we talked about the Mantell incident. So we're going to skip the Stanford abduction, and we're going to go on down to number 5, and that is the
Bluegrass Triangle UFO Blitz, 1978. Which it's not really telling me. I guess it's still ongoing, but it's just Central Kentucky. So in 1978, a flurry of UFO activity in the Fayette and Madison County area earned the region the nickname the Bluegrass Triangle. In one instance, Madison County firemen were called to put out a fire that turned out to be a glowing flying saucer UFO that they have pursued for over an hour. In another encounter, a preacher and his wife claimed that a craft about 10 stories high and 20 stories wide with a zillion lights on it.
I want to know how they counted a zillion lights.
You know,
I know it's a quote, but still, a zillion lights.
well, how many lights do you think was on? I think about a zillion.
I'd say a zillion. I'd say
I think there's about a zillion lots on
there's a zillion and a half.
There's, it was
Now, Robert, you know better. There's no zillion and a half. It was a zillion
was
cold.
10 high, but 20 in fat.
And listen, so this happened in 1978, and if you happen to be the person who made this quote and you're listening to this podcast, we're sorry. We were just, we're dumb. Don't
Yeah.
worry about us.
I don't know how you sound.
right now.
Yes,
So
that's what it is.
Okay. But apparently, this monumentous giant craft approached their car while they were on the way to church.
As one does.
Okay. A teenager named Terry Kirby took a Polaroid of what he says was a large glowing saucer that descended near him while he was chopping wood. I believe I'm
I
looking
always
at the-
keep my Polaroid camera around when I'm chopping wood.
Yeah,
Yeah, chopping broccoli. No,
In-
nobody knows Saturday Night Live anymore. Okay, go ahead.
chopping
That's
broccoli.
old Saturday Night
It
Live.
is, I know.
In all, over 20 reputable citizens reported similar experiences in the region during the same time frame. That includes the preacher and his wife. And okay, the proximity of the Bluegrass Army Depot. Yeah, okay. I'm sorry about that. And the proximity of the Bluegrass Army Depot has led many of them to speculate that it could be the source of the mysterious activity.
And that goes back to what I always say. I always think that we jump to the conclusion that it's always aliens. I don't think that's necessarily always aliens. I think maybe the government
You
has
think it's
a-
military
yeah.
tech sometimes?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if I'm wanting to keep a plane, like you've got to fly a plane to test a plane.
No.
Yeah, I know it's weird.
On Earth?
Yeah, I know. But you've got to fly a plane to test a plane, and you if you want to keep it a secret, like you don't want other countries to find out what kind of technology we're using. So if you see a, quote unquote UFO, the government's probably going to be like, yeah, UFO, that sounds good. Like that sounds what it is.
Venus.
Oh yeah, or the planet Venus, yeah.
Let's not get started on that.
It's hard to tell them apart.
It is. Or a weather balloon. America has so many weather balloons. It's amazing.
I've never seen one.
Well,
I've never seen the weather be right.
If they have crappy weather balloons.
Still the same ones from the 40s.
I think so. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. I've talked about this on Elliott's article, so I'm just going to go into it real quick. That would be the Louisville UFO Dogfight. It happened February 27th, 1993 in Louisville, Kentucky.
Oh, wow.
In 1993, well before recreational drones were a thing, two experienced Louisville police pilots.
Your Eastern showing.
I know. Took their helicopter out for routine patrol after midnight when they encountered a glowing, pear-shaped orb the size of a basketball. According to the pilots, the orb appeared. I don't know what's wrong with me. The orb appeared to steady their helicopter, circling it before abruptly ascending at an estimated speed of 600 miles per hour. But the incident wasn't over. The orb reappeared, circling the helicopter again, and when the pilots tried to evade, it gave chase. That's when, according to the pilots and witnesses on the ground, the UFO shot 3 baseball-sized fireballs at the helicopter and disappeared. Now, what this story doesn't tell you is that there were actual witnesses, police officers on the ground who witnessed the exact same thing that the people in the helicopter did. And I read the actual article about this that I found online from the Courier Journal, where they covered this not only the day before, but the day after, too. And, it's just an interesting case. I don't know. Was it a UK fan that was mad at a Cardinal? I don't know what was going on.
Yeah, so mad.
Yeah. Rick Pitino, but I guess he was at UK
No,
at the
he
time.
was at UK. He was ripping that blue
Yeah.
at the time.
I apologize, Rick Pitino, if you're out there listening. Go ahead.
He's in jail. No, I'm playing.
No, he's not. No. He's a very successful coach. Okay,
Very
let's move on.
successful.
All right, Miss Gertie.
All right. Moving on. Number 7. The Paintsville UFO/train crash.
Now, listen, I said, I said we skipped one because we hadn't talked about
sorry.
it. No. Listen, we're not skipping this one. I love this story. Goose and Cronkite love this story. So let's hear it. Go ahead.
January 14th, 2002.
Not that long ago.
No. In Paintsville, Kentucky.
Not that far from here.
In 2002, a train was hauling coal and freight through Paintsville, Kentucky, on its way to Shelbyana.
So it actually left from Ashland, Kentucky?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Russell, around that area.
Russell County. At exactly 2:47 a.m., strange hovering lights appeared on the tracks ahead of them, and the train's electronics went haywire. Above the nearby river, at least 3 other hovering crafts seemed to be scanning the water with searchlights. These UFOs were described as metallic, with no windows or visible openings. The train's diesel engines lost power, and, unable to stop quickly enough, it struck the UFO closest to the tracks. After reporting the incident, the crew was instructed...
Wait. What's wrong, Beagle? What's wrong?
Okay, so we talked about this before the podcast actually began. But I have a major problem with this.
What would that problem be?
And what that is okay, we're under the assumption everyone here is like-minded. We believe that we are not the only beings in the universe.
Uh-huh.
And these beings are so intelligent. They're more highly advanced than us.
Yes.
And they have come down to study us.
Maybe.
This is
We
all.
hope.
We hope.
It's not nefarious. It's
not-
just quiz.
yeah. So
quizzical interest.
this can't be the first train
they've
that they encountered.
I beg to differ. I think this may be the first train they've encountered.
It was the last also.
Look at this great beast lumbering through the mountains.
So it's like, okay, let's just disable all that stuff, and then what was going on in the cockpit? Like, were the ones on the side like pull up, and
It was probably more like meow 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 meow.
These are if we're talking about throughout these stories we're talking about the same kind of aliens. I don't know if there's different from a different galaxy
we don't
over here.
We don't
over
know
here.
if
Like which denomination are we dealing with?
Yeah.
And then we're talking about the eyewitnesses. Human eyewitnesses are talking about them, and they're like 500 miles per hour. They took off in a flash, and they can't beat a train going like 35.
Yeah.
Nothing beats a train.
But I mean, who's to say that
unit. Thank you.
those drivers, for them, it's like that's like an entry level job.
Yeah.
And that's like some teenagers
Maybe it was
who messed up.
Maybe it's teenage aliens that stole their parents' their craft.
So what you're saying is
that's what it is. They're out for a
Like,
joyride. They're just
I'm
messing
going
around.
to the restricted zone, and I'm going to view Earth.
so they're
You
just
can't stop me,
joyriding,
Mom.
right?
Yeah.
And then because we're aliens, what are they going to do?
Well,
What's that? Fling Blom?
Let's talk. Let me give you all some more info about the story real quick. That this doesn't bring clear. Yeah. So like I said, it left from Ashland. It was actually near. Yeah, I know you're not done yet, but I just wanted to throw some stuff out here.
Sorry with my hand
No. It was actually, this happened right around an area. It was around mile marker 42. I'm still not sure if that's like the same kind of mile markers you see beside the road or if it's a railroad mile marker. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I know that Paintsville train station was at mile marker 60. So we're talking about 18 miles outside of Paintsville, closer to Ashland. In an area known as Wild Kingdom, because
So they had a fast pass, the aliens.
yeah.
And then they decided they park jumped. That's what
they skipped line. Yeah. No, because they had the engineers who drove the
Jaywalking.
train down through there had saw so many different kinds of animals, like
Okay.
so they called it Wild Kingdom.
Okay.
Go ahead, finish the story. I'll tell you a little bit more right now, though.
Okay. Let's see. After reporting the incident, the crew was instructed to bring their damaged engine into the yard at Paintsville. Once there, witnesses described being greeted by an army of workers immediately tending to our train, while several people in weird outfits rushed around. Witnesses also claimed that the train's damaged carriages had been removed and placed under a large tent, buzzing with activity. After extensive questioning, the workers were transported to Martin, Kentucky, and allowed to return home. By that time, there was no trace of activity at the Paintsville yard, and the public was told that the entire incident was due to a rock slide on the track.
Yep. So what the article doesn't say is that they brought them to Martin, which is in neighboring Floyd County. Paintsville's in Johnson County. They then proceeded on. They were interviewed by people at Paintsville,
Which is a more rural area,
which
right?
is a more rural area.
Martin,
Yeah.
Kentucky
Martin
is more rural.
Then they were interviewed again by CSX agents at Martin, which is the railroad company. Then they were, I guess they were drug test. I'm not sure. I don't want to say for sure. You can find the actual report given by the people on the train online. They were then moved on to Shelbyana, where they were supposed to go. Mm-hmm. Then on their way through, when they got to Paintsville, there was absolutely nothing there. Like it just never happened. Mm-hmm. Now, to move a train that fast, first of all, if you're 18 miles outside of where who are these people? These were not railroad people at Paintsville.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Who were they?
Men in Black.
I mean, it's a good possibility.
How did they mobilize and converge so fast? Like, what's
Exactly.
the time? Do you know a time frame on it? Or
I'm not.
anything
I'm
like that,
I'm really sketchy on the time frame.
Okay.
Goose and Cronkite could probably
Okay.
tell you more about the time frame, but to me, it just doesn't make sense. Now, I've got my own personal beliefs about this. So, Mothman, Everybody here knows the Mothman.
Yeah.
We talked about the Mothman. It happened near the Russell Ashland area, near Parkersburg.
Okay.
And there was a person, an entity known as Indrid Cold. He was an alien who presented himself to a man named Woody Derenberger. One of the first things Indrid Cold said to Woody Derenberger is, "I'm a searcher. I'm looking for something." Okay. To me, it doesn't make sense. If I am like Beagle said, if I am a advanced alien life form, yes.
Yeah.
Why am I looking in a creek or a river, or it's a creek in Kentucky? What am I looking for?
Which, okay, if I'm going to give a little bit more credibility and maybe take a little bit of the slack off of those teenagers.
The teenage aliens.
The teenage aliens that were driving that crazy thing, kids. It was called the Animal Kingdom, or what was it called?
The Wild Kingdom.
The Wild Kingdom. So that was a place that they could possibly view multiple species.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
So maybe that was just a good place to. But then, I mean, why were you on the tracks?
Why were you floating over the tracks? What I mean. I don't know. It's a
one
strange
thing that
case.
does kind of help it out for me,
Yeah.
though, in just the whole other direction, is how fast the cleanup was.
Yeah.
We've had rock slides, near where I live that are they've never been cleaned up fully.
Right. You're
but,
right.
You're telling me about this was picked to the point where it looked like nothing had even happened.
This happens at 3 a.m.
Why not leave it
roughly.
to at least that it looked like, if it was a rock slide, you're not going to pick up every rock. What are you talking
Yeah,
about?
I understand. It's crazy. I don't know, guys. I don't know. This is another one of those, like the Mantell story, though. I could read about this all day. And we make this plea every time we talk about it. So I'm going to make it again. If there's anybody in our listening area, people who are listening to us right now, who know anything about this, please contact us. It can be anonymous. It can be, you don't have to tell us your name. We won't tell your name on the air. Mm-hmm. You can contact Goose at Here to Chew Bubblegum. Cronkite is Cronkite at HereToChewBubblegum.com. Or you can contact myself or Ned at HereToChewBubblegum at Yahoo.com and just put attention Elliott or attention Ned in the subject line. And please, if you know anything about this, let us know. We would love to know more about this.
Absolutely.
Like, this is one of these. There's another case that we're getting really into right now that happened in Perry County in Hazard. And Goose and Cronkite have talked about that a little bit, and we're trying to find information out. But it is, these local cases for us, it really makes it worth it. I just love it. And speaking of local cases, let's talk about the next case. Gertie. Real quick, Gertie was not expecting me to throw this to her, but I just realized that my copy cut off part of the stuff.
No.
So, Gertie,
Surprise
if you could
article.
read the next one, and then this is the one we're ending on, folks.
Okay. Bright hovering tubes.
Mm-hmm.
October 16th, 2012, Pike County, Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
In 2012, an amateur astronomer in eastern Kentucky observed a UFO that he described as like two fluorescent bulbs side by side, parallel, shining very brightly. He goes on to say, it would get so bright they would seem to merge, and you could see it very clearly with the naked eye, he said. Then it would dim down, almost invisible. It wasn't anything I recognized. Definitely not an airplane, and I've never seen a helicopter that looked like that. Others in the area reported seeing the same craft, and despite making national news, government officials could offer no explanations at the time. The UFO has since been explained as a test flight of a solar-powered internet balloon. But why didn't anybody know about it?
So we've moved on from weather, and we've moved on to the internet balloon.
I want, is it a new way
And
to have
before that,
fiber?
it was astronomy. It was just straight up.
Is this?
Listen, so there is a video of this and pictures of this on this website, so please check this out. Again, this is a local one. I don't want to talk a lot about this. I don't know a lot about this. But if you do, we've had people who've called the show, wrote the show, that witnessed this firsthand. If you well, I mean, this happened just
in Pike County,
a couple years ago. Please, if you've seen this, call in, write in. We want to thank you all for listening to Elliott's articles and Here to Chew Bubblegum. It has been a great pleasure of mine to be here with my family, my spooky family, for the last couple of episodes. And we really appreciate all the nice emails that we've been getting. Please continue to email us. It makes us feel good about ourselves to hear.
And I hope that I'm a lot louder this time.
Yeah, we've tried to work on that. Thank you, Tanya.
Me as well.
By the way,
yes,
for sending that in. We knew as soon as we heard it, we were like, we got to be louder.
Yeah.
But we appreciate that. You may hear from us again in the future. You may just hear from me. You may, who knows? At this point, we are the spooky family, and we show up sometimes when we're not wanted in places we're not wanted.
Yeah,
so
we're definitely not wanted.
No,
and we're there though.
Not even by our regular family. Not the spooky family.
Oh, you guys.
But we do feel like Here to Chew Bubblegum is our home, and we're glad that you've accepted the spooky family as part of this. But once again, big thanks to Goose and Cronkite. They do a heck of a show, and we're just glad to be a part of it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Elliott. Dear listeners, please stay vigilant. Elliott and the spooky family out.
When you want fresh, authentic Mexican food, you want El Picante in Coal Run. Dine on sizzling hot fajitas, the freshest pico de gallo, or if you're craving their secret ingredient jalapeno dip, the only place you'll find it is El Picante. Look, there are Mexican restaurants on every corner. The difference is in the mouth-watering food and the great service you'll get at El Picante in Coal Run. Visit El Picante for lunch today.
It's now time for Ned Said on Here to Chew Bubblegum.
Hunting unicorns is legal in Michigan.
You can always call, text, or leave a voicemail for Here to Chew Bubblegum. 606-373-3396. You can also send an email to goose@heretochewbubblegum.com or cronkite@heretochewbubblegum.com.
And welcome back. I'm Cronkite. That man across the table is Goose.
I'm Goose.
And we had an excellent interview with Justin off of
Talk Junkie.
Talk Junkie.
He's fine man.
Definitely. What an excellent
Good
show.
guy.
Excellent show. And, go listen to it.
Yeah.
He's fantastic at what he does.
And I'm sure that after you listen to his, like I told you, it makes me feel stupid.
It's kind of lowbrow. Yeah, it's pretty terrible. But I mean, we have fun.
Yes, we do. We talk about this stuff to carry on Art Bell's legacy, but Justin says stuff that really makes you think.
Yes,
I mean it really does.
Absolutely.
So, Cronkite, moving on, you're going to talk about TWA Flight 800. Now, I don't know if I've heard about this one or not.
Okay. I guarantee you've heard about it, but probably not. You probably haven't given it much thought. It's been 25 years since.
Okay.
Since
well, I was a lot younger 25 years ago.
Sure. I mean, you were almost 50 then. So.
Yeah. Just go ahead and make the old jokes there.
Yeah.
At least I don't forget what questions I want to ask.
I forgot the question mid-question. Oh.
The look on your face, too.
That's terrible. So now, TWA 800, the official investigation wrapped up with the NTSB saying that it was a mechanical failure in the center fuel tank under the aircraft. So there was a spark that ignited fuel vapors and ultimately destroyed the aircraft.
Right.
The reason that I picked this flight is one, you know that I love airplanes.
Yes,
I'm an
yes, you
aviation
do.
fan. At the time when this happened, I remember watching the news coverage and being enthralled with the conspiracy theories that was surrounding it, and even the conspiracy theories that are alive today about this aircraft. Even though the official report says something different as a mechanical failure. But that's kind of what I want to go about today, is the conspiracy theories that were surrounding the aircraft. So we'll start out with a little background information on the flight, and then we'll go from there. So TWA 800 was a Boeing 747, the largest passenger aircraft at the time. And it was scheduled an international flight from New York JFK to Rome, Italy, with a stopover in Paris. At about 8:30 Eastern Time, it was about 12 minutes after takeoff from John F. Kennedy when it exploded and then crashed into the Atlantic Ocean. Of the 230 passengers and crew on board, there were no survivors found, making TWA the second deadliest aircraft accident in the United States at the time. While investigators from the NTSB arrived on the scene the following day, many witnesses to the accident had seen a streak of light that was usually described as ascending, moving to a point where a large fireball appeared. There was an intense public interest in the witness reports and much speculation that the reported streak of light was from a missile that had struck the TWA 800, causing the airplane to explode. Subsequently, the Federal Bureau of Investigation initiated a parallel criminal investigation alongside the NTSB's accident investigation. Now, what is interesting to me is during my research, I think his last name is Kallstrom. He was the FBI head director of the New York office at the time. Almost immediately, and in fact that night when they were told about a plane that had exploded, they began their investigation immediately. Now, what's weird about that is the NTSB will call them in if they find something criminal. The NTSB is tasked with investigating air crashes, bus crashes, things like that. But it's almost never that the FBI immediately starts investigating. That was strange right off the get-go. But now they say it was because the Atlanta Olympics was the following, was next week. So they wanted to jump in there. And what was odd is that, of course, there was a bombing at the Atlanta Olympics. That was very strange, too.
Yes.
Ultimately, the NTSB was unable to determine the exact cause of the explosion. Excuse me. As wreckage was recovered, preliminary testing indicated the presence of an explosive residue on 3 samples of material from 3 separate locations of the recovered airplane wreckage. These samples were submitted to the FBI's laboratory in Washington, D.C., which determined that one sample contained traces of, I'm not saying that word, but basically it's RDX.
Okay.
Another is nitroglycerin, and the third was RDX. And the third was PETN, because I can't say that big word either.
Okay.
These findings received much media attention at the time. While investigators from the FBI viewed these positive tests as strong indications of a criminal act, the NTSB was more cautious, noting the lack of any patterns of the recovered wreckage characteristic of an explosion. Now, it's important to note that this airplane was literally in 1 million pieces. It's not an exaggeration. It had shattered. Like, this airplane was no longer in any form of looking like an aircraft anymore. And there was, I think, over $1 million spent to reconstruct this aircraft on the investigation. And they did. They reconstructed a good section of this 747 from pieces no bigger than this table, essentially. And from there's where they were kind of able to determine that the outward explosion from the fuel tank. Now, what's strange is that there are traces of explosive residue from inside the aircraft. Now, that was kind of told to be like a month before it was used as a bomb sniffing dog was being trained on that particular aircraft, and that stuff must have leaked out onto the aircraft, which is strange.
How could that leak out? Now, and I do think I remember, is this the one that they were saying that they thought somebody may have shot it with a rocket launcher?
Yes.
Okay.
It's the same one. Now, ultimately, the NTSB was unable to determine the exact cause of the explosion. Explosive residues found in the wreckage. Some of the possibilities considered were contamination from the aircraft's use as 1991 transporting troops from the Gulf War 5 years later, or it's possible using a dog training explosive detection exercise about a month before the accident. However, the lack of any other corroborating evidence associated with higher energy explosive led the NTSB to conclude that the in-flight breakup of TWA Flight 800 was not initiated by a bomb or missile strike. Here's the thing. Over 150 people saw a glowing fire with a streak of light going to this aircraft.
And striking it.
And nobody is saying...
Now, if I remember correctly, there was video, too, of the streak of light that you talk about for going from the ground.
There was a couple still images
yeah,
shot of
yeah.
that. Yeah. It was very strange how all of this came about, but it's also one of those things of like, this is kind of where my love for conspiracies came from.
Okay.
And even though it's a very sad story,
yes, it's very sad. It
certainly is a sad story, but there is so much around this. The area that this plane was flying in was skirting a no-fly zone, where the U.S. Navy was conducting operations at the time. Now, it certainly wouldn't be the first time that a missile strike has brought down an airliner.
Right.
And it certainly wouldn't be the first time that the U.S. Navy has accidentally brought down an airliner. The USS Vincennes in the Persian Gulf brought down an Iranian airliner, mistaken for an F-14 Tomcat, which was supposed to be one of Iran's aircraft. Russia actually shot down a Korean Airlines aircraft in the Pacific once before. I mean, MH17, the sister to the plane that we're going to talk about next,
right,
was shot down in Ukraine 2014 from a surface-to-air missile. This stuff does happen. Accidents do happen.
Right. Well, but why? If it was an accident, why wouldn't they come clean and say, "Here's what happened. This was an accident. We're very sorry."
It's a very good question, and I can't answer that. But the witnesses say that they saw a streak of light coming from the surface of the water
right.
to this aircraft. So there was initially thoughts of terrorism, a bomb, missile strike, and then it was eventually determined that, of course, the center wing fuel tank exploded. Well, how does that happen on a modern airliner?
Right.
Let's see. So, of course, a lot of people are saying that it was shot down by a surface-to-air missile from a U.S. Navy submarine by accident. In fact, let's see. Asked by a reporter about this, Donald Nmr, now 72, leans forward and from his living room couch and says, "Some of what I'm going to tell you is a little bit strange. I think I've had a couple attempts on my life." From there, Nmr proceeds to spin a 20-year tale of trying to get to the bottom of Flight 800 explosion, only to be frustrated by what he insists were various attempts on his life. After spending only a few days at a hotel set up for grieving Flight 800 family members in Long Island, Nmr insisted that he and his wife be transported back to Montoursville, which is where they're from. And now it's important to note that he's the father of a daughter. That there was a high school class on the 16 high school students, I think, and 21 total from this town of this school, I think,
right,
going to Paris for a trip. And actually, if anybody is familiar with the movie Final Destination, that is this airplane crash is actually where they got the inspiration for that opening sequence on the aircraft. So after only spending a few days for grieving family members, their daughter Cheryl was one of the first victims recovered and identified. And Nmr said that he can no longer tolerate the claustrophobic concentration of grief inside the hotel. In all, 16 teens, all members from the Montoursville High School French Club were tragically taken in the fiery crash. While most remained in shock in the days following the crash, Nmr was already exposing his belief that the plane was shot down. Meanwhile, many press accounts of the time openly speculating about terrorism. But it wasn't until the police escorted Tripp back to Montoursville, however, that things became a little more interesting. As Nmr tells it, the police escorts would change as his chauffeur-driven car raced at high speed from New York to Montoursville. At one point, they seemed to lose their police escort. That's when Nmr says a car with smoked windows began swerving into their lane. Nmr's driver reacted, nearly rolling the racing vehicle. The other car, again, swerved aggressively. This time, Nmr shouted to his driver to slow down. Soon, their police escort was back, and Nmr completed their travel to Montoursville. But for Nmr, it was proof that not only there was much more of the downing of Flight 800, but also unknown forces would stop at nothing to keep those secrets. He said, I expressed my concerns about friendly fire, and it didn't go over well at all. Yet the strange events were only beginning. A year or so later, invited to speak before a gathering of Pennsylvania newspaper editors, Nmr was driving to State College when his steering wheel began to shake uncontrollably. He pulled over to find just one loose lug nut holding one of his front wheels onto the axle. He said he can't prove anything, but that was 1 or 2 years after the crash. Several months after Flight 800 crashed, he was contacted by a mysterious woman who wanted to meet him. When he showed up at the agreed upon place, the woman was there, but there was no other vehicle in the otherwise deserted lot of a local church. She proceeded to inform him that she was the aunt of a Navy submarine crew member who, she said, accidentally fired the missile that took down Flight 800. The woman said her nephew, who had been reassigned by the Navy out of the country, was seeking forgiveness, something that Nmr said he couldn't grant. So, how do you see what I'm saying? It's like this thing is dripping with conspiracy.
Definitely.
Now, what they say is that Flight 800 was a delayed flight, and that the center wing tank only had about 50 gallons of fuel in there. And it had sit on the tarmac for 2 hours, I want to say. Mm-hmm. And the air conditioning packs for the plane are actually underneath the fuel tank for this airplane. And as it sat there on a 90-degree day, the air conditioner packs are running. They say that fuel vapor is actually concentrated so much in that center wing tank that when it took off, a spark ignited the center wing tank and blew the airplane apart.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you buy that?
I think that's why it's such a good story or not a good story, but it's such a story that I would follow, is because there's so much to it. Mm-hmm. It would make me very sad.
Right.
That that a commercial airliner was allowed to operate like that. Right. If it were that case, that just out of nowhere it could just explode at any moment.
Right.
But you can't ignore the fact that there are 150 witnesses that saw this airplane streak or this thing streak to this airplane. Now, what's important to say is the CIA actually helped with a animation of the airplane during the press conference or whatever that said that it kept saying not a missile, not a missile, not a missile on bright white letters.
Truth in plain sight. We've said that before. That is a great conspiracy theory, great story, very sad story.
Yeah, and what they're saying is that what the people actually saw was the sound of what the people heard was the plane exploding. When they turned around to look and they saw the streak of light, was that there was the rest of the airplane climbing away from where it had actually exploded, and then it fell over and crashed. And
I'm going to throw a little nerd fact in here. You mentioned Final Destination. That's where they got the idea for that opening of that movie.
Yes.
That was originally wrote as to be an X-Files episode.
Oh, really?
Yeah, X-Files passed on it, and then the writer Jeffrey Reddick, born and raised in Breathitt County in eastern Kentucky. I've met Jeffrey a couple of times. And, he was originally, he even told me that he submitted that to be and X-Files, one of their episodes, but they rejected it, so then he turned it in, reworked it a little bit, and made a movie.
Fantastic.
So.
That's awesome. If you want to see a documentary on TWA Flight 800, Epics, there was some people, a man and a woman, did an excellent documentary only a few years ago, I think 2013, and it was on Epics. I watched this documentary. It is a fascinating documentary. Please go watch it.
Now, this next one happened, 2014?
This was 2014.
And this one has a lot of conspiracy theories with it.
This one is a strange one.
Yes, it is.
MH370 was a Malaysian Airlines Flight 370. It was a Boeing 777, and it disappeared on March 8th, 2014 after departing from Kuala Lumpur for Beijing. It had 227 passengers and 12 crew members on board. Malaysia's former Prime Minister stated that the aircraft's flight ended somewhere in the Indian Ocean, but no further explanation was given. David Sauchi, a former FAA inspector, has said that the theories that have been put forth in this matter are important, but there is a lack of knowledge as the theories and notions help us to consider various possibilities. On March 26, 2014, he stated to CNN, "In an accident investigation, it's a critical part to come up with theories, especially right now when we don't have anything. We don't know anything tangible. We don't have something to say." He says because we don't know where the plane is, and we need that to find out why. If you take one theory, the plane would be where we're looking at right now. If you take another theory, where there was a nefarious intent, they're trying to avoid radars, the airplane could be somewhere else. If you say it was whatever it is, you've got to use the theories, weigh them against the facts, and so you know which to go on. This thing has an enormous amount of theories behind it, so I'm just going to go over a few of them.
Okay.
Of course, number one, hijacking. The possibility of simple hijacking has been brought up by various news outlets. Speculation has mounted that the possibility that hijackers took the plane to a remote island, although no group has claimed responsibility. However, unofficial researchers have identified more than 600 possible runways at which the plane was capable of landing. No confirmation has been received from Malaysian officials, and the credibility of several hijacking theories have become further marginalized following the discovery of the first definitive fragments of MH370 wreckage in 2015. Electronic hijacking. So electronic hijacking uses systems and programming already factory installed in the 777. This is different from hijacking or cyber attack, and it requires access to 777's security system through access purposefully programmed into the software. Notable proponents of this theory include former Malaysian Prime Minister, and in 2014 he said clearly Boeing and certain agencies have the capacity to take over uninterruptible control of commercial airliners, of which MH370 was one. In the statement, he was referring to the off-board hijackers with access to MH370's flight system via a 2013 patented uninterruptible autopilot. In 2018, he became the Prime Minister again, and he's still a proponent of that theory. So this one's going to make sense when I talk about it later, but spoofed satellite data basically says that developed a theory of aircraft's controls when were taken over by hijackers from the electronics and equipment bay, accessible through a hatch in the first-class cabin. Theorizes that the Nmr satellite pings were a deliberately laid false trail created by feeding the plane's satellite communication system false data, which in turn caused the system to false frequency corrections. So terrorist attack is the next one. Shortly after it disappeared, it was claimed that it may have been a force of terrorism, possibly by a jihadist attack. Between 9 and 14 March of 2014, Robert Murdoch tweeted that MH370's disappearance confirms jihadists turning to make trouble for China. He later suggested the flight might have been hidden in northern Pakistan. We'll circle back to this one in a few minutes too.
Okay.
Acquisition of Freescale staff. Now, I had not heard this one until I started researching this. So it says a variety of social media posts and email chain letters claim that the patent 8671381 was approved days after the disappearance of MH370, and the right to the patent was split 5 ways: 20% to Freescale Semiconductor, and 20% to each of its 4 employees, all of whom were passengers on the plane. The patent deals with fabrication of integrated circuits on a semiconductor wafer. So, I mean, yeah, it could be money related, I guess.
Yes.
Diego Garcia. Now, this one was the big one. Do you know about Diego Garcia? It's a military installation in the Indian Ocean.
Yes. Actually, I looked that up earlier in the week and was looking ahead at some stuff. Yeah.
So Diego Garcia, the conspiracy theories have suggested that MH370 was either captured by the United States and then flown to the United States military base on the atoll of Diego Garcia, or that the plane landed at the base directly after being instructed to travel there. The latter theory was raised at the White House daily briefing on March 18th, whereupon the press secretary responded, "I'll rule that one out." Underpinning the Diego Garcia theory were several elements, one of which was the co-pilot's mobile phone contact on the plane's western turn, both of which were consistent with a flight path toward the island. In that vein, it was reported that, without giving a concrete source, that the captain had trained in landing on an Indian Ocean island with a short runway. Now, yes, when they investigated this, the main pilot, he had a flight simulator in his house, and he had logged so many flights landing on Diego Garcia.
Okay.
But now it is important to know that where the last Nmr satellite picked up this aircraft, several thousand miles away from Diego Garcia. So we're not sure. Now this one is probably the most likely, the crew hijacking or murder-suicide.
Right.
It is thought that maybe there was maybe a murder-suicide thing happening with the pilot.
Okay.
And that he incapacitated the crew, the rest of the crew and the passengers by depressurizing the airplane, and then made a turn to the south. At which point it flew for another 7 hours and then crashed. That's the current, probably the theory that's holding the most weight right now.
Okay. Now, did they find any proof to back that theory up?
They have not found anything. I mean,
was he suicidal? Was he, had his dog died? Had his wife left?
No, I mean, nothing really that I've found. It's just that he had strange behavior. Namely, the captain made no social or professional plans after March 18th, when the plane had disappeared. That was pretty much it. I mean, that he just didn't
make any plans.
Excuse me. Domestic problems.
Okay.
So, I don't know. Another theory is that there was a fire. A number of theories suggest that the disappearance may have been the result of a fire in the cockpit, cargo area, landing gear, another part of the plane. Now, I will go ahead and rule this one out, because on Swissair 111, which was a MD, I want to say it's an MD-11 maybe. It's another wide-body jet that took off from JFK going to Switzerland. And a little over an hour after it took off, a fire broke out on board it.
Right.
And once they declared an emergency, it was 10 minutes before that aircraft crashed. So 37 minutes after MH17 took off was the final communication from the pilot, which said, "Good night, Malaysia 370. 39 minutes, the transponder is no longer working. 48 minutes, voice contact is attempted from another aircraft, and mumbled voice and radio static is all that was picked up." 7 hours and 37 minutes later was the final Nmr Satellite Handshake. And what the Nmr Satellite Handshake is, this airplane, of course, these 777s are all, a lot of technology goes in these new planes. Right. There's a satellite that basically does a handshake to give engine performance on these aircraft in real time. It does it once every hour. And at 7 hours and 37 minutes after that plane took off was the final time that satellite made contact with that airplane.
Now, what about the theory that, and this goes along with the remote captured theory, that somebody hacked it and they flew it to Antarctica?
I haven't heard
remotely.
That. Yeah, I've not heard that theory. But if a remote hack is possible, then yes, they would definitely have been able to do that.
I did. No, there's not been any parts of this plane found, has there?
There has been. There's been a part of the wing. They call it the flaperon, which is essentially just the way the plane lands and flies it, turns and maneuvers. And it's about a section about as big as this table.
Right.
But it was found several 100 miles away from where this plane supposedly crashed.
Right.
That tells us one thing, is that yes, that during the time that they found that, the way the water moves, that's where they would have expected to find that debris. But they still haven't found the full body of the airplane. Now the other thought is that, or the other thing is, would you find a piece that big? That tells us that the airplane probably didn't go straight in at a high speed,
right?
Because it's not shattered into a lot of little pieces,
right?
It probably did hit the water at high speed to rip it apart, but it didn't go in at such an angle that it was going to generate enough forces to literally shatter the airplane. Now the other theory, the final theory, was about an aircraft that crashed a few years later, I think, and it was Air Asia Flight 8501. And the theory is that this flight was actually MH317, but I think that plane was actually an Airbus, not a Boeing. So I don't know how they're getting that. But essentially, it disappeared and crashed in the same similar area. The other theory is that MH370 was actually MH17. Remember, we talked about MH17 being shot down. So that happened only a few months afterwards. Now, if that were the case, and maybe a terrorist group hijacked the plane and flew it to Pakistan or whatever, bringing it back could have, could have put it in the same area where it would have been shot down.
Well, how many planes do you think are over us right now at this moment?
Right now at this moment, maybe 4 or 5.
Hey Siri, what planes are flying over me right now? Did you know you could do this trick?
I found an answer. It's displayed on your iPhone.
There is 1, 2. Man, there's 5.
Ha.
So, flying over us right now is United States Flight 1500. It's 20 miles away from us. GoJet Airlines Flight 4396 is 20 miles away. American Airlines Flight 2084 is 24 miles away. Southwest Airlines Flight 494 is 28 miles west of here. And Mesa Airlines Flight 6076 is 24 miles northeast of here. And it actually has a sky map, See, there's our home. That's where we're at.
Cool.
It shows. Yeah, you never knew you could do that.
No,
yeah.
I mean, I've just had this phone like 2 weeks.
Yeah. And, but yeah, that is pretty cool. So I figured that out a few years ago.
That is pretty awesome.
So
yeah, no, I love doing stuff like that. Like there is an app that you can listen to.
There's an app for that.
Yeah, you can listen to live communications from these airplanes too, like ground control and stuff like that. It's pretty neat.
That's cool. That's cool. Well, we have no listener text or question of the week this week because we're recording earlier than we do. But if any of our listeners do want to make contact with us by phone, text, or leave us a voicemail, all they got to do is call 606-373-3396.
That's right, 606-373-3396. And if you want to email us, you can email Goose at here-to-chew-bubblegum.com or Cronkite at here-to-chew-bubblegum.com. Ned or Elliott, here-to-chew-bubblegum at yahoo.com. Subject line, attention, Ned or Elliott.
Yes, and I guess that'll do it for this week. Special thanks to Carlin for all the voiceover work, CK, Uncle Bill, and the rest of the gang at deadped.com, T-Shirt Joe at fastcustomshirts.com. Again, I want to thank Justin with Talk Junkie. Be sure to check our friend Justin out over at Talk Junkie, and also check out Down on the Holler with Jordan, Brad, and Jordan. And coming up next week, we're going to have a special episode of Here to Chew Bubblegum. We're going to talk about Ingersoll Lockwood Incorporated. That's right, it is our Ingersoll Lockwood Incorporated special next week on Here to Chew Bubblegum. That'll do it for this week. We'll see you next week, and until then, so long for now.
for listening to Here to Chew Bubblegum. Tune in next time as we dive deeper into things the government doesn't want us to know.